Welcome to Fenland Chat Hour. Today is Wednesday the 6th of October and this is episode 23. I'm David Johnson and in the studio is actual Amanda Carlin.
Hello.
And today we also have producer Jodie Jasmin Hicks.
Hello, nice to be joining you both.
Hello, Jodie.
So just a bit of housekeeping. So it's been approximately 18 months since Fenland Chat Hour went off the air. And this is basically a one-off special, basically coming back to talk about old times. Just go back over what we did. I think there's a feeling with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and various other, where they're sort of having these big reunions like Friends and things, where they're coming back and it's like, what's happened over these years? And it kind of sort of inspired me to actually to do something like this, because I feel that we kind of came to an end very, very quickly. And I don't think we really had a good sort of end or close to the series. So it'd be nice to sort of go back and look at it into a more of an introspective view of what happened. So what I'll do is Jodie is going to be the producer of the show. I am no longer producer Dave. I am just Dave. And so we'll hand it over to Jodie. Take it away, Jodie.
Yeah, woo, round of applause, please.
Radio 2, Steve May.
Yeah, so I'll be running today. But I think before we dive into the show, I think it would be best just to say a little bit about ourselves. So, Amanda, if you'd like to start.
Oh, thank you, Jodie. Well, yes, I'm Amanda and I'm a Wimbledon resident and a proud Fenland resident, I feel. I am director of a heritage, culture and community business, and I also work with my husband's business and he is a mechanic.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. And
you.
David?
I'm David. I'm a media director. I have a media production company and I make and produce things, films, televisions, adverts.
You're an absolute whiz, David. That's what you are.
And occasionally podcasts as well.
So I'm a frequent, I'd say I worked with David quite a lot in the past, and I'm a freelance producer, director, stage manager, actress, all kind of fingers in many pies, I would say. But it's really lovely to be joining you guys today. So shall we get started, guys?
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. So why did you start the Fenland Chat Hour, and what was the reason that you did?
Shall I start with that one? Because
Yes.
it kind of came from me. When the pandemic was moving, let's say, and we had the lockdown that had been announced on the 23rd of March, it became very aware that everything was going to get shut down. And looking at it from a media perspective, I suddenly realised that if everyone's going to be stuck at home, there's going to be an opportunity to have groups they'll be reliant on using tech and the internet and streaming and other sort of online devices. So I basically offered my services to various organisations around the local area for helping them either set up something like this, something like a podcast or some kind of live streaming or something. So a lot of churches and various other youth groups and organisations and stuff. So I put the word out, and Amanda was one that came back. And you had some talks, and we were going to initially do it in the church.
Yes, St. Peter's in Wimbledon.
Oh, lovely.
And then the church came back and had to then close because everything got worse. So if you want to sort of carry on, pick up the story from that point.
Well, I think, it was really great. It was really great when David reached out and asked, I want to help. and invited people to come and say, yes, we'd like you to help us. What I was interested in, as David said, people could access organisations, groups, get help online through tech, but there was a whole group of people that didn't have access to tech. So we wanted to try and get the message out in another way, especially to vulnerable people. And we both felt that newspapers help, media outlets help, but they're not always, drilling down to the people enough, to the actual people in the villages and the Fenland towns. It seems to be Cambridgeshire, doesn't it,
Yeah.
rather than the Fenland residents getting hold of the information that they really need to in real time.
There does seem to be very much a black spot for news and media within the Fenland area. If you just look at the BBC, it seems to be very Northampton centric. ITV seems to be very Northampton centric as well. And occasionally, if something bad happens, then we kind of get the odd news story further into the Fens themselves. Knowing that Peterborough has next to no coverage either, they've got a couple of local radio stations, community-based ones, and there's a couple of other things dotted around. So Cambridge has got This Is Cambridge, which is another sort of free view television. So there's a very limited amount of information that's specifically to this area. So that was our main drive, is to how to take the information that was coming from the government and turn into something that was actually relatable to people here.
And accessible.
Yeah.
And things do happen here, not just bad things. And I feel like it's nice that this kind of brought some of the smaller victories that are happening, like in the Fens, and spoke about it and let people know that this is going on. Because I think we're all under the impression a lot of the time that nothing happens here. And in fact,
Sleepy Fenland.
Sleepy Fenland, not so sleepy. Absolutely. So how did you go from the initial idea to actually recording it?
Okay, David.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, I'd kind of been pushing the ideas for podcasts for a couple of years, so I kind of already had the equipment to start with. It is still quite a niche thing, and there's not many people around here that sort of go into podcasting. It's definitely on the rise, and a lot more audio podcasts, and I think certainly with COVID, it's certainly become popular, and a lot of celebrities and have embraced the podcast culture, and so it's sort of become cool again. You've gone from like 200,000 podcast shows to like 2 million in quite a short space of time. But we had the technical kit basically, and we just sort of, most of the stuff was there. It was a case of just bringing it all together, just getting a sound mixer which was specific to this kind of thing, because we needed to look at recording telephone calls as well. So how to get things that were suitable for all aspects of what we were looking at. So really, the main bit was just to buy the mixing desk. Everything else sort of followed on. We used Skype.
Yeah.
Because Skype was still the main medium of video communications. Zoom was around, but it was only just coming to the forefront. It was only just becoming aware, and people were only just starting to use that as the main means of communication. So we kind of rode on the tails of Skype for the first couple of months, because that was just the way it was going. I think if we'd done it now, if we knew then, we would have used Zoom as the main medium.
Was it also, it wasn't as secure as it is now, was it, at the time? I seem to remember.
There were a few technical issues as well, yeah. There were people who were having technical issues with it. And the other thing I've found now is Clean Feed, which is something that the BBC use, which is just basically an audio channel directed. So it's an internet-based audio channels, which gives you nice clean audio between two remote locations. Had I known that, but that's a paid site, and I used that for one of the previous podcasts that I've done, and it does make a big difference. But hindsight is a wonderful thing. It was a case of we had to start with what we had, what was available. We had about a week and a half to set everything up. Ordering stuff off the internet was very short because a lot of stuff disappeared because all the other podcasters all started buying equipment. So there was a lot of kit, the sort of the top end stuff just disappeared overnight because everyone was just buying everything. So we basically just had to make do with what we had. And I think we considering we were doing it remotely, we did quite a good job because it was originally supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be 2 microphones sat on a desk opposite each other and then talking. But that level of complication went right through the roof when they said, right, no one's going to anyone's houses, there's no meetups, you've all got to be locked down. And that just turned everything on its head.
Do you remember when we used to record an episode, my laptop kept shutting down?
Yes.
It's just annoying. It was so annoying. I
were a lot of technical issues.
Yeah, it was a nightmare.
So how did you combat that? Like, what did you learn from those issues that you had?
Patience. I would say, wouldn't you, David?
Yeah, the easiest thing was to get you to record your own version of the podcast. So I would record mine, Amanda would record hers, and then you would then send me the audio files, and then we'd then put it together.
Gosh.
The problem was it became very time critical. We had stuff that we were talking about that needed to be put out that day. And because we were doing so many, if it was going to slip, it would then just mess everything up. So we recorded the show at about 11 o'clock. Took about an hour and a half to record. You then sent me your files. I put mine. So
I tried.
The rest of the afternoon was trying to get the internet to work to send these large files.
Goodness.
And then I'd put it together, add all the music, edit it. And you think it's an hour long show and you've got to edit it as you go along. So that takes an hour and a half in itself because you've got to go through it in real time as you're sort of removing bits and pieces. And then uploading it, doing all the data and stuff like that, and then promoting it and putting it out. So usually about midnight. So it was about 12, 13-hour production from start to finish.
I mean, that's crazy. And as well, you had to because the news changed so quickly. Like, day to day, the rules would change or this would happen or that would happen. The news was just so thick and fast, wasn't it, during the lockdown? So
And we did it 3 days a week, didn't we?
We did to start with, yeah.
3 days a week.
We did Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays.
Yeah. Oh.
Which is why it was so stressful. That was it. We thought it would be straightforward. It wasn't, and the criticalness of it was we suddenly realised that we were picking up on stories that weren't even on the radar of the main media. So we were we were discussing ideas and concepts, legislation, rules and behaviour long before it was getting picked up on the news. And it was quite funny. You would listen, we would talk about it, and then 2 days later the BBC News would be running a story that we'd discussed 2 or 3 days before, and it was quite scary in some respects. But we realised then that we had to keep getting it out as soon as possible. We were kind of ahead of the curve in a lot of respects.
I mean, is there anything that comes to mind, Amanda, that anything specific in relation to that?
Well, it was a lot around behaviours. People just weren't grasping the lockdown rules. And no, that is a generalisation. A lot of people did grasp it, but a lot of people didn't. And there was a rub, wasn't there? The frustration behind it. And that's the thing that springs to mind most of all. And it's almost as if we were predicting when the next lockdown would come as well.
Yeah.
You know, when are we going to be told we can't go into people's homes? We knew it for some reason, didn't we? We were discussing it as if it was going to happen.
Yeah, and we were talking about, because we sort of hypotheticals of how things would play out, and sort of the practicalities of vaccines and when they would be rolled out, and sort of issues with schools, and it was an interesting time. But that was the problem, though. It had to get done in such a short space of time. We then went 2 days a week because it became impractical and quite stressful.
Yeah, the uploading was difficult. For some reason, bandwidth seems to have improved, doesn't it, since then? But there was definitely an issue, wasn't there?
Because everyone was homeschooling, everyone was working from home, so the internet was just getting slower and slower.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just a kind of like a question about what was it like making the show during that time, what impact it had on you. Did it help making this show, giving you something to do?
Yeah, I think the original concept was when everything shut down, we thought, right, this is it, we're in for the long haul. My business is going to dry up, your business is going to dry up, and that was it. So we thought, well, I'd rather keep doing something. It was kind of a vanity thing in that if there's no work, no one's going to know who the business is. So the thought of, well, if I'm still producing stuff, then I'm still promoting stuff, and then therefore my company name is still out there, and passively people will still see it. You know, we're not just suspended and shut down. So that was my own sort of mercenary sort of approach. The problem was, one, I didn't get any of the handouts from the government, so I had to keep working. Secondly, I was still being asked to work, so I was fortunate that people were still coming up and asking me to do projects. I had to do an art journaling course, and then we did a writing course, and there were other things that were sort of legacy things that were finishing off. So I was actually still quite busy. And so when we'd taken on the idea of the podcast, I thought it would all be quiet and it wouldn't be an issue to do 3 shows a week. But the workload just got more and more. And so the stress between doing the recording, trying to fit it in, trying to do recordings and filmmaking, it just got too much. So that was the intention, but it's not the way it worked out.
Have you, Amanda?
Well, I think what impact it had on me personally, well, it was fun. You know, it was stressful, as David says, but I think we really bonded and worked well as colleagues throughout it, don't you, David? I think it was
we had a very good rapport.
Yeah.
And it was very good because we got to learn how to finish each other's.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah, we did.
Sandwiches.
Yeah, and well, David and I have worked together before, but you know, it really did help with the bonding experience. I think that was good, and I learned a lot from you.
Having someone to talk to. I think because we were so shut down and isolated, just having someone outside the house just to talk to and just sort of talk through what's going on was actually quite useful.
Yeah, definitely. I think from a mental health perspective, it probably kept me sort of sane.
Well, it was a way of keeping focus.
Yeah.
You know, it gave us something to work towards and to do it, but it also had a kind of a counterpoint. You know, and we had to sort of bring it to a close, partly because of the amount of work that it involved. We just weren't able to carry it on. But you know, we talk about mental health, but that was the problem. It was when you're researching the show, we were having to go through the statistics of the totals that have died and were in hospitalisation.
The doom scrolling. Yeah.
But also trawling through the negativity and the darkness in all the newspapers, trying to find stories and stuff, trying to find some kind of glimmer of something positive when it's just doom and gloom across Europe and the rest of the world. And I found it getting harder and harder to actually cope. So I found it was actually doing more harm for me, but it was helping other people. And so it was that sort of trying to keep it going as long as possible, trying to sort of keep that balance. But in the end, I just couldn't do any more. I was getting exhausted, and I was concerned about my own well-being.
Well, yeah, you were focusing on the national media, and you had to, like you said, so that it wasn't pleasant at all, was it?
No.
The numbers were huge.
Yeah. It's existing in that headspace where you're concerned about your friends and your family members, and you think, you know, going to the supermarket, we were washing all of our shopping as we kept, like, thinking about now, that's crazy.
I'm still doing that.
You know, just give it a little scrub. I mean, it's what we used to do, and you kind of look back and you're like, we lived in that time when we were afraid to leave our houses, like, and the effect that has on your mental health as well, it's not...
I just think that something I mentioned that when we were talking during the early stages, when we were getting people to wash their hands and you to sing happy birthday, and I said, even now I still think that in 5-10 years time you're going to have a group of children who are going to be traumatized by whenever they hear happy birthday, because they were 3, 4, 5 years old at the time when they were singing happy birthday and washing their hands, but there's also this doom and gloom and death, and you know, you don't know how it's affected their families, but they're going to grow up and they're going to hate listening to happy birthday.
I've got a 3-year-old grandson, and I've got a 4-month-old grandson as well now, and the 3-year-old, what I will say is, whenever there's been an issue at nursery and he has to self-isolate, he goes mad. He wants to be outside. I think it's the thought of being forced inside all the time. There's definitely something there. Yeah. He wants to be outside all the time.
I think there's going to be a lot of baggage, emotional baggage now that's going to be sort of the next 10 years at least.
I think with especially young children, like a few of my friends have 2 and 3-year-olds, and they're worried because it's kind of like it's taken a step back with their communication, because they're at the age where the more they mix with other children, they can, you know, make friends easier and they can communicate more. And my friend's just had a first year reception, and he's not mixing well with other children. Like, he doesn't know how to do it because he's not done it. Like, grew up during that. So it is very... I think we are going to see the effects for quite some time, aren't we?
Because it is quite an important part of development in children's...
Definitely. Families couldn't go to visit. We couldn't go and visit our grandchildren. We couldn't go and visit the newborn. It was awful, really. You know, if you live different parts of the country, you're in trouble. I remember when you had to take your daughter her Christmas present, you had to go before the lockdown, didn't you?
Because we were just about to go to lockdown, so we had to drive. I can't remember if it was the birthday or Christmas. It was basically, it was during it was the start. It was the Christmas lockdown. That's right. The Boxing Day was lockdown, so we had to go there and drop everything off as quickly as possible to then get back to make sure that you were back
on time.
we weren't then sort of then arrested for being out and about.
Yeah, it's crazy, because I remember having Christmas dinner around my grandparents when I finished my shift at 10, because at 12
the curfew
was happening, so I was quickly eating my dinner before I could go back.
That is amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely amazing, the things that we've gone through. Really, we're okay though. We got through it.
I mean, on the whole, I think we are quite resilient, and we do put up with the conditions that are brought on. But I think there's also, you got groups of people who are just very anti. Yeah. You know, you can't tell me what to do, so I'm not going to do it. Culture, and I think that's, you know, they keep saying, well, why are there so many, you know, fatalities, deaths that are COVID related? Well, I think a lot of it is down to people who are just, you know, pardon my French, but just bloody minded in just their approach to things. You know, I'm going to do it. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to carry on doing it. And we've seen the knock-on effects from that. So it's, you know, just trying to get everyone to do everything that they've been asked to, and a lot of people have chosen not to.
I do think, you know, we're going to see another lockdown soon, though. And I do think also that the reason we'll see it soon is because Boris doesn't want to cancel Christmas again.
I'm putting my money on. This is just predicting
Go
the
on,
future.
go on.
I think the half-term holiday,
Yeah.
I think, is moving towards that having a fire break. I mean, they've been talking about it, and I think that's highly likely. If you think this time last year, we were just about to approach the Eat Out to Help Out.
We were.
Gosh,
And I
that
think
was
that's I was just thinking about it this morning. I think that's gone really fast this time last year. How it's changed.
Hasn't it?
But I think we are looking at a fire break either the end of October or certainly the beginning of November. I think if they're going to tie it in with the school holidays.
It would be sensible. And I don't know, obviously, and we don't like we don't like to second guess these things, but conspiracy theories. We don't like conspiracy theories, but the fuel shortage that is not a fuel shortage. Don't you think it's interesting? I mean,
That's
almost...
a behaviour thing, though. I think
It is a behaviour thing, but it started somewhere. Where was that planted? How was it planted? And it did force us to stay at home for a little while, didn't it? Last week, I did not go and put fuel in my vehicle because I thought I had about 5 miles worth of fuel left, so I was on vapours, literally. But I thought, no, I'm not going to get engaged into this madness. And I was thinking, I am enforcing myself to stay at home.
Yeah.
I literally was. And to try and get off my driveway was almost impossible because I am just down from a petrol station. I was trapped.
gosh.
I don't know if it's one of these timely things that just coincided. I know that was it BP
Yeah.
forecourts where someone had said they've got a shortage of drivers, so it's affecting some of them, and then the media blew it all out of proportion, and then complained that it wasn't the media that started it, but it was the media that were going, oh, we've got shortages, and they're showing pictures of people all queuing, so everyone thought we've got a queue, so then hit everyone. So people were buying more fuel because the local petrol stations here have all said that they've sold far more
Yeah.
than they've ever sold. So people are buying more fuel. So it's not a case of we're just buying the same amount and there isn't the demand, there isn't the support or the supply. It's a case of people are buying over in excess of what is normally there. So there's a shortage. So people are queuing. And it's a vicious cycle. So people need to stop queuing and stop going out and buying fuel every time the fuel drops and just go back to a normal routine, and it will then balance out.
Yeah. Yeah. People do, though, don't they? The minute they get to half a tank,
Yeah.
they'll go, I don't.
When they get down to the last 15 toilet rolls, they're out there buying the next 15.
It is a bit of mass hysteria in a way, isn't
Yeah,
it? When you
it's a
think we
culture.
haven't learnt from buying toilet paper
And
2 years
pasta.
ago. Do you know?
Flour. You couldn't get flour.
But the
Love more
irony,
money.
the irony was there is enough flour.
Yeah.
The problem was that there wasn't enough flour in 1 kilo bags. If you wanted the big sacks of flour, you could have it. The industrial size stuff, there was plenty. So there was no shortage of flour. It was just not in the containers that were readily available for supermarkets.
Gosh.
Crazy.
So just to go back while we are on the subject of COVID, did any of you have COVID? Do you know anyone?
Oh,
You had it?
I know people. Do you know people, David?
I know people who have had it. I know one person that died from it.
Oh, I'm sad.
I know
hear
one
that.
person. I know some people who've had it. I know one person who's got a long COVID, and they're still suffering from it, even though they had it probably about 9-10 months ago. They're still struggling with it. So, but I've not had it myself.
No, I haven't had it, and one of the reasons I get really worried about it, and I am still sanitising when I get a food delivery, is because so our daughter, her friend had her father over, hadn't seen him for ages because of lockdown. She was expecting, and he gave her COVID.
Gosh.
So I'm really, really strict on it, and at that point in time, they weren't they hadn't had their injections. My niece, my nephews had it, and they got it from the Euro 2000 celebrations, which I'm really, actually, I have to say, I'm quite angry about, because they were really strict on the COVID regulations, and they went out to celebrate, as you do, and the owners should have been on the venue, because we were still under COVID rules then.
Yeah.
But you'd got all these television screens showing people celebrating, hugging, and all sorts, weren't there? No mask wearing. And so the guard was let down. But yeah, they can pinpoint when they got it. I'm testing regularly. I don't want to give it to the grandchildren. I'm very worried about that.
It's still a worry. I mean, I had it 2 months ago.
Oh, bless you.
But it was very mild. I'd been single jabbed, and I don't know whether that had something to do with it, but because NHS call you every 2 days to check in on you, which I didn't know at the time. And they were saying, I remember them saying to me, it's a very small percentage that actually really suffer with it. Most people don't know they had it. This is why it's spreading so fast, because most people go through their days completely asymptomatic and they don't know who they've passed it on to. But it was so strange, because you think it's over.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, we're all safe now, everything's opened. And then I got it only 2 months ago, and you're kind of like, oh, well, no, it's still here.
Jodie, I'm so sorry. That's horrible.
I caught it on my birthday as well.
Oh, no.
But no, it was quite mild. I was worried because I'm asthmatic as well. I thought it's going to be quite bad, but it was it's fine. But yeah.
And you look fine.
Yeah.
How are you?
Fine. It wasn't. I had a lot of people really worried checking in with me at the time, and it just felt like a cold, like a bad cold. But I did a PCR test and it came back positive, and I was like, oh, okay. But no, it wasn't too bad at all.
I don't like those tests, those swabs and things.
They are really horrible.
I'm sure they're doing more damage to you than.
It's the waiting.
Yeah.
What, the 30 minutes of doom?
Yeah. Have I got it? Have I got it? I did. Somebody spat in my face the other day. You know, that kind of thing. No, when they were speaking. I mean, I have been out and people have spoken, and I thought, oh, do you not know there's a pandemic?
We're just talking about birthdays again. No one's going to have you breathe over there or blow the candles out again. Are you going to eat a birthday cake that someone's blowing their candles out?
No, that is a really good point.
Yeah. It's not COVID friendly, is it? Hardly.
No, you're going to have to get some other way of extinguishing the candles.
I go to church regularly, and so pre-pandemic we used to do the peace, shake everybody's hands. Now you can't do that. You have to wave at each other.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's nice to wave.
I suppose communion as well, if you're handing out wafers, you've got to do a different way of...
What happens is, with wafers, your hands are sanitised as you go up, and you're given the wafer, but you don't have the cup at the moment. Don't even do it.
Yeah, because they can't even pass that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, there's all these little things, isn't it, that has changed. I mean, you've mentioned the
shot
candles.
glasses.
Pardon?
You could have it in shot glasses.
Well, they do that. The Methodists do that.
Yeah.
They have, but they don't have alcohol.
Oh.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, all I was going to ask is kind of like, does it have an effect on our lives now? Like, how big is the effect COVID has on us now? Like, do we think about it even?
Yeah, I think about it a lot. Do you? I do.
No. I think I kind of have to remind myself. Like, if I'm going out,
That's
I'll suddenly,
good.
I sort of get to the door and think, or I'm halfway down the street and thinking, oh, do I need to wear a mask? Because obviously some places are now, you still have to, and some places you don't. So I'm like, do I have to? So I'm kind of having to double check or make sure that I've got something with me. I mean, I will hand sanitize it if I've taken deliveries of parcels and things, because you don't know where it's been or what the contact is. So from that respect, I kind of got into the habit of doing that when taking deliveries and stuff. So kind of not washing them, but just sort of handling them in a sort of COVID way. But I don't I think I don't stress over it. I don't worry about it. I don't think about it.
I think that's good. I think that's very good. I do. And I think it might be because I'm a safeguarding officer, and also I am a worship leader, and I do have to set church up sometimes. So we've still got every other pew. You can only sit in one pew, and then every other pew you're not allowed to. It's not cordoned off any longer. It doesn't look like you're in prison anymore. And there are masks. Mask wearing is encouraged. You can't make people.
No.
I think that's the thing. If you are involved with it, you have to be aware of it. So I think you, like you say, your kind of the roles that you carry on, you're going to have to be constantly being vigilant and keeping up with the protocols. Whereas the other people like us who use the facilities aren't having to go through that, which is a case of, right, where's the latest regulations if we're going to go somewhere, and then we just sort of do a refresher.
Yeah, I found it really nice to go away, stay in a hotel, and not really have to worry about it as well. So I think sometimes when you're out of your normal environment, it's more relaxing, isn't it? I think actually going away is healthy. I think the staycation's a cool thing. I think we're putting back into our country, aren't we? It's a good thing.
It is. I think a lot of hotels have benefited from, and certainly a lot of UK destinations have benefited from staycations.
Yeah.
I know that the Isle of Uist was quite popular for a bit.
Was it?
Yeah, every single celebrity and TV production company all descended on the Isle of Uist at the same time. I think Joanna Lumley arrived, Susan Calman turned up, Grand Tour turned up, and there was a couple of others as well that all turned up because for some reason everyone decided to go to...
I'd love to go and see Joanna Lumley walking down the beach.
But they all arrived on the ferry at the same time.
Amazing.
So like, because all the production crew all knew each other and like, oh, who's that? Oh, they're doing such and such.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Could you imagine just on your holidays and then seeing all these famous faces and people making
I'd love it. I'd love it. You could go and get loads of tips, couldn't you?
Yeah,
could you imagine?
I mean, when's the next spot next year?
Yeah.
We're going to take the podcast on tour.
That's a good idea. I think it's a fantastic
We
idea.
could do this in front of an audience.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, alive.
A live studio.
Oh no, that would be so cool.
Well, let us know if you're interested.
So, just while we're back on the show again, so what feedback have you had? Like, have you spoken to people who listen to the podcast?
I think you've had more of an interaction with the community because obviously with Wimbledon.
Yeah. People have, yes, they've enjoyed it. They've liked it. They've said they've listened to all of them, which is good, isn't it? We don't know. They say they have, but they do refer to things that we spoke about. So, yeah, it's all been positive.
I mean, I get the stats, so I know areas where people are who listen to it, and so I get the top countries and the top towns. And if you're interested, I could give you the top 10 countries.
Yay!
I was going to say, where have you reached?
Okay, so number 1 is the USA.
I think that's brilliant.
I think we've got about 2/3 of our audience is America, which is brilliant. I mean, the fact that so many people in America have... I wonder if they're all expats or Brits who are working in America. It'll be interesting to know if that... It's quite... Yeah. They still have connections. So, but it's interesting that there is such a big audience in America, and we're seeing them working their way through the podcasts, which is, I know who you are. Number 2 is the UK, which is expected. They're the next biggest one, but then it sort of drops down. So America and UK have taken most of it. Ireland has just joined, and they're now at number 3.
Wow.
Belgium is at number 4. We've got a following in Belgium, so shout out to
yes,
them.
we love the EU.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that, sorry.
We do. I think there's still a minority. There's still 49% of us that still like the
That's
EU.
right.
So,
We love them.
5 is Germany. Now this is where we go off piste a bit. We've got Thailand at 6.
No.
Australia, Singapore, Ukraine, and Romania.
Wow.
And they're the top 10. We've also got Colombia, Canada, Kazakhstan, Iran, and Chile in there in the mix as well.
Bizarre.
It's
So
crazy
we
to
have gone
think.
global.
We have. Oh.
I just think it's funny that what's his name that does the House of Games?
Richard Osman.
Richard Osman.
Ah,
He does
yes.
the House of Games, and one of the rounds is called "Where on Earth is Kazakhstan?" So I thought it was quite funny that we actually had someone from Kazakhstan listening in.
That is very funny, isn't it? We could say, Richard,
Yeah.
we know, we're there.
So yeah, it's just amazing how many people have listened, and we've actually just crossed 1,100 downloads, most of them in the last 12 months.
That's fascinating, isn't
Because
it?
it started off fairly slow, but obviously as we've added more episodes, and then with the Art of COVID chat that we did, that's actually boosted a lot of the earlier episodes. So that sparked a massive interest in a lot of the other. So we actually had more people listening to the Fenland Chat Hour than we did when we were doing it.
It is a snapshot in time, though. And
You were saying, you said that to me yesterday.
Yeah, so I was just before I thought, because I think I was on one of these way back when, and I just listened again to remind myself, and I was just listening in on the stats for one thing, and the stories and what everyone was doing, and I was like, it's a piece of history, really listen to it. You know, it'll be quite interesting to look back a few years on and just re-listen to these episodes and what we did and what life looked like then.
Yeah.
So,
It's almost like a museum piece.
yeah.
We should put it into the V&A.
V&A, yes.
Yeah, they do odd things that
They
could be
do.
submitted, so maybe we could do that.
Yeah, be a good idea.
We could
be a great
immortalise
idea.
forever.
Okay, so what I'm actually quite interested. This isn't in the questions, but like,
Okay.
how does it feel to know that you've reached Thailand and Belgium, and obviously because it's not necessarily the intended audience, but these people are listening to it. So how does that make you guys feel that they're engaging?
I'm surprised. I mean, I expected the UK to be the main audience. I expected to be local. And it has been in different formats other than podcasts in like Facebook and YouTube and stuff. It has been more localized. But this just went global, I think, because of the accessibility of podcasts. You do a search and anyone can listen to it. So I guess looking at it from that perspective, I'm not surprised that it has gone as far. But yes, it has been a surprise that people in such remote places have found this little podcast. Because like I say, we've got 2 million podcasters out there. And for someone in Thailand or Singapore to suddenly go, oh, look, here's the Fenland Chat Hour, we'll listen to that. I don't know what the story is behind them, whether they are all just expats across the world who know of Fenland and have sort of just tuned in just out of interest. It's an interesting concept.
It is. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And I'm glad that David has access to those stats so that we do know.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. Be lovely to hear from people. Put something on the Facebook page, people.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just going back to say the ending the show now. I mean, why did it stop after 21 episodes?
The workload. Mental health, workload, bills needed to be paid. Because this is all voluntary. This is we must point out, this is us giving our time up to do this voluntary. There's no money, there's no sponsorship. It's just a case of we just get on and do it. because at the time we thought we were just providing a service. I think if we'd done it maybe once a week, it may have been not stressful and we would have lasted longer. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. I don't know. Stress, bills need to be paid. As I said, we weren't getting funded, we weren't getting support from the government, so we had to find other ways. So we then just went back to working.
I think it is interesting. The government at that point in time really were doing their best to help people through. But there were self-employed people who were left high and dry. It's very interesting. Employed people were on furlough. Businesses, limited companies were getting support, but the self-employed just fell into this deep, dark hole. And people, actors, for example, famous actors, they were having to work in care just so they had a paycheck come in, and everybody had to start thinking outside of the box as soon as it came to considering income through COVID, didn't they really?
It was the concert culture. So it was the photographers, it was the musicians, it was the engineers, sound engineers, the videographers, anyone who creates something that like a stage show, but they're all independent, limited companies, and they just didn't tick any of the boxes because they don't have a premises. So they didn't get funding from small business rates, and so because they all work from home, and there was millions of people that fell into that category. I know it's not just me.
No, and I know the government said you can't be evicted throughout that time, but people have been.
Yeah, that was still happening. I mean, they managed to stop a lot of it, but it didn't stop some of the unscrupulous people, and a lot of people who didn't have contracts.
Yeah.
That was the ones who were getting caught out because they were just staying with friends.
Yeah, and then they couldn't pay the rent to their friends. Yeah, for the rooms they had.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah. When you think about it, and this isn't a nice country to be homeless in.
No.
Is it really? So they did try their best. Rishi Sunak helped a lot of people, and a lot of people are grateful, but I think we have to think of those people as well. And they've got the conference now and we're talking about levelling up. Let's hope they keep doing the right thing for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be naive if we don't think that there's going to be tax rises, because that's the thing, is they've drained all the coffers, paying everyone to keep them afloat for the last year. I think you're blinkered if you think that they're not going to want the money back, because there is no money left. And everyone's saying, "Oh, why can't you fund this? And why can't you give the hospitals more, pay the nurses more?" It's because there's no money. It's all been given away with all the furlough schemes and various other payouts to companies, and that's the thing. A lot of it has gone to the businesses, but I can see it coming back at some point.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Time will tell, won't it?
I know the student loans,
so.
they're lowering the limits to the student loans.
Are they? That's interesting. It's very interesting what's happening. I have a huge amount of sympathy as well, I have to say, for young families, because they are in very expensive rentals a lot of the time, aren't they? Because it's impossible to get your foot on the housing ladder at the moment. And then they're in cramped conditions, and I should think there's a lot of frustrations going on, and money worries, they're the worst.
Yeah, I think that's when you start worrying about money. If that's the issue, then they can lead to all sorts of things. People get desperate.
And I do think it's having an impact on culture and attitude, all sorts of things.
It doesn't feel quite like we're stable now.
No, it's going to take 2 or 3 years at least to get back some kind of stability.
Because it's kind of like you it's hard, I think, when you're not in, say, a set job. You kind of, when it's more like in the arts industry, and it's like, if we do this project, what if we have to go into lockdown again? How many audience members can we have? How can we safeguard everyone? There's so many extra things now to take into consideration that we never had to think of before. So, yeah, moving forward, it's a big change, and we all have to get used to it.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We do. And we've had to be more and more flexible as individuals. And there used to be this old saying years ago, didn't they? British people don't like change.
Yeah.
I think we're well used to it now, aren't we?
Yeah. Challenging and complaining and change.
Sounds about right.
And queuing.
Oh, we love queuing.
Well, we used to.
Yeah, now it's knife fights in forecourts.
Yeah. It is though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Gosh.
Did you hear about the tanker, the driver? He was carrying mortar for a construction company, and he had a whole queue of people following him down the road for miles. And one guy got angry, saying he should have pulled over and told us that he wasn't a petrol tanker.
No.
Because he was carrying
They
cement
just
for this.
assumed that he was a petrol tanker.
Because it looked like a petrol tanker.
So there was a convoy.
And they were just following for miles and miles.
That's brilliant.
Breaker.
Come in, rubber ducky. Got a 10-4. Sorry, Jodie, you're too young to remember that?
No, sorry, that went straight over my head.
Generations.
Yes, it is.
But I feel like we're sheeple in a way, because if I saw one of those cars following that, I'd probably
That
be
is
like...
being sheeple. That's sheepish. Yes, it is.
Well, they had that on LBC. The woman, they found a woman saying, "Well, why are you queuing?" She said, "Well, because everybody else was."
Yeah,
I don't know why.
There you go. That's. I saw somebody trying to put fuel into a carrier bag on telly.
Yes, I saw that.
I saw someone double bagging it, just to
Just
be
on the
safe.
safe, yeah. And filling their water bottles. I mean, are you going to drink from that?
Oh, it's horrible, isn't it? It's very horrible. Yeah. This is absolutely crazy. There was apparently a petrol station in the Midlands where people were queuing up.
And it was shut. Yes. The police had to go there to tell them to go away. Because it was just closed down. It wasn't even...
Oh, really?
It wasn't even a petrol station before.
Oh, wow.
And then you got someone that was an anti-fuel campaigner. Someone had hacked Google and turned his house into a petrol station. So he was getting inundated with phone calls asking if he'd got petrol. Shouldn't laugh.
Oh, no.
I think you've got to. I think you've got to laugh. It's mad.
It's all on the discussion pages, isn't it? It's just like, okay, Tesco's has diesel, and this place has petrol, and this place is that, and you're just keeping an eye like, where do I go? But
And it's all gone. And they don't want you phoning up to check before you go, which is a problem. If you're on vapours, it's a problem, isn't it?
And it's
Yeah.
probably the emergency services as well. Like,
I know.
if they can't get to where they need to go, then we're in trouble. But
Well, that's it. There's ambulances were queuing.
That's bad. It is bad.
All the buses are having to... So like one bus company's had to stop general service just so that they can make sure they can do school runs because they're not getting their deliveries of diesel.
That's awful. Absolutely awful. Oh, sorry, microphone. What's the insulation group? What's it called?
Insulate Britain.
Insulate Britain. Now they're crazy, aren't they?
They are.
Insulate Britain. It's a very good, very important message. We need to be more eco-aware. We have a worldwide disaster about to hit us. We know this, but stopping ambulances
Yeah,
getting to hospital, that's disgusting.
it is. People are going to lose their rag. I mean, you can have a message up to a point, but if you are stopping people in difficult situations, like trying to get to hospital. So you're going to lose the backing and support of the people that you're trying to help, or to sway.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to shut down their minds are just going to go, right, I'm not interested. You're causing me grief.
Yeah.
So why should I support something that you stand for? I think they were talking to the protesters and saying, why are you doing this? And they didn't know. They didn't know they didn't know what it was they were supporting. They didn't know how many houses hadn't been insulated. They didn't know this. If you're supporting a cause, you're supposed to at least know why you're supporting the cause.
Who are these people? They're sitting out on the pavement and they don't know why they're sitting out on the pavement. And they're stopping ambulances and they don't know the reason why. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this...
even just the concept...
Humans, I think, we're a plague.
You're stopping people getting down a road, so they're then having to take a 10-mile detour round. So you're then creating more pollution getting to your destination.
They shut down the M25, didn't they?
Yeah, several times.
Yes, they have.
And it's just... So you're creating more pollution.
Exactly. And
so
they're
it's counterintuitive.
Yes. And they're an offshoot, aren't they?
Yeah.
Of Extinction Rebellion.
Oh, are they?
Yes, they are. So they're not
gosh.
even. So I think this is an extreme group that don't understand what they're doing.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Scary.
I think it's going to get to the point. Well, they've already seen people come losing the rank with them.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
saw
going to
that.
get to the point where they're just going to you're in the road.
Yep. Oh, I hope nothing like that happens. I know. People get very cross, don't they?
And just they're going to start getting riots where the public, not that we're actively saying, we're not promoting it.
No.
But you can see people are going to go, right, we've had enough of this. Just get them out of the way.
Yeah. I saw them being dragged.
We have enough problems trying to get with Brexit and the deliveries, trying to get people in and out with the fuel as well. Last thing we need is a bunch of cowboys gluing themselves to the road just because they think it's funny.
And the amount of resources that would take, you need so many police cars and officers driving out to them, trying to get them to move.
This is the thing. You've got Sarah Everard.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about more policing to help.
Yeah.
Keeping people safe. But you've got lunatics who are gluing themselves to the road for no reason. So you've then got hundreds of police relocated to deal with this incident of stupid people. And you're then saying, well, we don't have the police to look after people who are walking to keep them safe in the towns.
Apparently, a tube station had to get everybody off the train. I think they may have run out of fuel. I don't know. 100%. They had four stops to go.
They're electric.
Okay. They had 4 stops to go, so it wasn't fuel. And
they hadn't put 50p in the meter.
Do you remember that?
I know of it, but I never had to do that.
Oh, that's funny. And they all had to get off the tube station, and a man wrote, I could see how fearful the women were that they had to walk from here.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing, isn't it? Keeping us all safe is important. That's the job of the police.
I mean, they're so overstretched at the moment, trying to make sure that they've got the right number of people in the right places. We don't need them to be distracted by other things.
No, definitely not. They were standing back with Insulate Britain when they were being pulled off the road by the public, members of the public. So I don't know why they were standing back. I mean, they have to consider every situation, don't they, whilst they're there watching it. Yeah. They have to observe and keep themselves safe as well, don't they?
I think they've just got to monitor until an actual crime has been committed.
So dragging somebody across the road is not a crime.
Well, as long as you're looking both ways.
The local Neanderthal was very happy about that. Yeah, no, they also, all the people that were dragging the people off the road did look like they were being fairly sensitive in the way they did it. I only saw one man kick somebody afterwards. You know how people walk by and they're cross and they go like that. You see
like
it
a
on
football.
yeah.
A footballer's tweak.
It looked a bit like that. Yeah. I'm sure he got a sneaky kick in.
Just a little full stop on their interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. You could really hurt somebody though, couldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
You could.
Oh, gosh, you do ask yourself though, what's next, don't you?
What's next? Somebody
What?
said something about pork.
Pork?
Yes, apparently.
Oh, yeah, all the pigs there's not going to be any pigs in blankets for Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Pork, bacon.
Because of the carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, because they can't slaughter them, can they? Because they don't have the CO2 for the guns.
Yeah.
Can't transport them. I wasn't able to get my roast potatoes from Ocado because of the CO2.
Because it's all the packaging as well.
So I didn't get my frozen food.
Are you okay?
I had to make roast potatoes from scratch.
Did you have to get the tin of Smash out?
That's not so bad, you know. Put a bit of butter in. Yeah, I'll have to get some of that. That's a good idea, David.
Stock up. Stock
up.
I'll just get some crisps. Get some crisps and add some water and put them.
Yeah, rehydrate them.
Yeah.
God, get some spam out ready.
Oh, that's stuff.
Anywho, I feel like
We're diverting.
we haven't talked about the show.
Okay. What's next on? What's the next question?
Next
then?
on the agenda is...
Hit us with the next question.
So the next one is probably more about after the show. So what's the show's legacy?
Good question.
Good question. Yes.
Who's going to take this one? Go on, Amanda.
I'm going to take it, am I? Oh, thank you. Well, I think the legacy is the fact that we've had more listeners to the podcast from all over the world, and the fact we touched on it, snapshot in time. So it is a piece of history. That's what was going on in our heads locally.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, it's history, and that's exactly what you were saying. It's a snapshot in time at a specific place, and I guess when people are looking back through archives in years to come, they go, "Oh, what was it like?" Like we talk about evacuees in the Second World War. What was it like? There'll be kids doing research projects on what COVID was back in the 2020s, in 20 years' time as part of their history project, and so they'll be searching through and like, oh, what's this then? And they can then hear audio accounts as it's actually happening, I suppose. Yeah.
It's very scary when you get to my age. But, and you watch Top of the Pops and you realise it was 30 years ago and you were sat in the front room watching that. Where did all the years go to? Yeah, so somebody will one day be listening and thinking, oh, that's really interesting. And that's wonderful.
I think because it's a different take as well. You've got the newspapers and they're talking about, the media perspective of COVID. And then you've got the news reports, which has got a different slant to it, but it's still, government-centric, what's happening, people's opinions. They're going for very left or right-wing opinions of whatever's going on. But whereas ours is different, and it's a more human element, it's actually what's actually affecting people and how...
Like without an agenda, I guess. Just two people who care.
We don't have a political bias for
completely without agenda. Yeah.
I mean, that was even some of the things. I mean, we're say pro-government, but some of the things that were going on, we were anti. The process of doing certain things. So we weren't politically biased in we would give either credit or disdain depending on what was going on. So it wasn't a political driven approach.
The thing that I would say we did do, Jodie, is encourage people to trust the government with the advice they were given, because not everybody was. And we had to, as a nation, if we were going to get beyond this, we had to trust what they were saying to us.
Or at least all just do the same thing.
Yeah.
If this is what's legislation, this is what's been put out, just please follow it. So at least we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And I think as well, if you are listening to this, I'd say 30 years, it would be lovely to hear your thoughts. If you could get in touch.
And if you're doing this part of your homework, make sure you get your homework done. Don't take drugs, kids, and stay in school.
Just say no.
Just say no. Education is paramount.
Okay, so...
Because if you don't stay at school, you end up like me, doing a podcast in the 50s.
With a knitted Yoda in the background of the studio.
Crochet.
Oh, sorry, crochet. Apologies.
Love Yoda.
So, with regards to after the show, so when you recorded it, what did you do afterwards? Did it help you in any way? And what did you learn from the experiences you had recording this?
Afterwards, I had a cup of tea.
Gin. Yeah, I have to say, really, Jodie, I'm so thankful to David. Don't want to embarrass you, David, but he did an amazing job. And there was some inspiration of other people that wanted to take up podcasts. They got in contact, didn't they? And they've gone off and they've been quite successful with their own podcast. David's helped them along the way. And that's also a good legacy.
Yes, it is. Yeah, because we put a post out in the Cams Times, the local paper, and there was details on there. So if anybody wanted to get in touch, and some people did.
It's been exciting. It's been a learning curve, and it's been good to work with David.
Yeah, thank you.
It's so embarrassing.
Well, I've worked with Amanda over the years. We've crossed paths, so it's always nice to work with people more in outside of the initial fields that you actually work with, because of the heritage side that you work with. So it's always nice to work and expand the sort of the envelope of what we do. But
we are doing other projects together along the heritage lines, aren't we?
And bringing these kind of techniques that we're learning from there into supporting that.
Absolutely. And because we've established that rapport and we've bonded well, actually doing the research and everything behind it, it's much smoother, isn't it? I think it's good.
So like the research side of things, you've definitely kind of learned how to streamline that, I guess, in a way.
What David's learnt to do is how to refocus my mind. and stop me from going off topic. It does take a few hours, doesn't it, David?
Yes, I do. I remember one of the first meetings we had, we went for breakfast.
Yeah, we did.
We went for breakfast at Skylarks, and we started about 9ish or something like that. I think we left, but we had breakfast, we had lunch, and I think we gave up on tea. But I think sort of about 4 o'clock we left.
Oh my gosh!
And that was talking about one project.
Very intense.
David stuck with me on it. He stuck with me.
I see David smiling, but his eye, it hasn't reached his eyes.
We get on.
It's very important.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, we don't see each other very often, so we kind of
David says,
catch up.
thank God.
No, but you can hear it when you're listening to the podcast as well, I think.
There was a good chemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It was an enjoyable experience from that perspective. It was stressful, and for all the reasons that David said.
Now, before we kind of finish and wrap up, I think there's one person that we do need to mention. Doris.
Oh, Doris!
Lovely Doris.
So, who is Doris, and what did she bring to the show for you?
I don't think we can name Doris, but we can talk about the concept of Doris, can't we?
Doris is sensible, and she's a lovely lady. And actually, Doris lives in Maney. So we had the Wimbledon posse, didn't we, and the Chatteris posse. So we do call her Doris down the road, and that's quite true. She is Doris down the road. So she gives us advice even today, and she'll tell us which day to put the bins out and which colour they are. And she was telling us how to use the slow cooker, I seem to remember, was something,
yes.
wasn't it? Yes, use the slow cooker, make food, use this, use that. So, yeah, she was good at giving us advice and helping people.
And she judged the art competition.
She did. People had to guess what Doris looked like. Actually, one of the drawings is very much like Doris.
Is that one you drew?
No, I didn't hand them over. I had to hand them over to a lady called Gail in Maney, who knows Doris. And at that point in time, I'd never met Gail. It was all I'd only known her through Facebook. You know how you have Facebook friends. So I sent the pictures over that we've got, photographed them, because a lot of them came through my letterbox, I seem to remember. And she said to me, "Oh, that one looks ever so much like Doris." So I didn't
Amazing.
know what Doris looked like, actually.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's all very cloak and dagger.
Yeah, and it still is.
She can keep her secrets.
Yes.
Some say she lives in the fens.
And we had What Would Doris Do?
Yeah.
Amazing. And what would Doris do?
What, right now?
She would be sensible in her approach to filling up her car.
She would. Mm-hmm. Most definitely. She would be very sensible about it. So she would wait until she got to about a quarter of a tank because being a bit older, a bit vulnerable, she would make sure she was safe to get to the petrol station. Bearing in mind, there is no petrol station in Maney. So you can
You've
break
got to
down
travel.
in the fen. Yeah. You've got to be safe. And I do think, I would like to say this, actually, that I don't think everybody is taking that on board. We're all looking at the fuel situation from our own perspectives. And it is something that's been created and is not real, but it has become real. And we have to think of everybody's situation and be patient, hopefully.
Yeah.
Anything to add, David?
I don't know Doris. Doris was a big influence in the show. It just gave an extra dimension to what we were doing. You know, it was that. It's like some comedy shows where they have an unseen character that just sits in or shouts or just everyone talks about that's never there.
Charlie.
Charlie's
Angels.
Yes, Charlie. I was also thinking of Howard's mother from The Big Bang Theory and stuff. You hear her, but you don't see it. So there's one of the sort of the tropes within
Mrs. Mannering.
Yes.
Did you ever see Mrs. Mannering?
Mrs. Mannering.
Is that Dad's
Dad's
Army?
Yes, it is.
Yay!
I got a reference! Hooray!
So yes, so it's quite a common trope within. So it was just having that kind of thing. It just added an extra dimension to the show.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean,
And we didn't have to pay her.
No, and she doesn't mind us speaking about her now. I did ask permission.
Oh, amazing. Very good. So we've talked a lot about COVID and the fuel crisis at the moment. What I want to ask now is, what do we have to look forward to?
Not a lot.
Christmas.
Not even East, which year? Christmas next year, Christmas 2022.
Yeah.
I think Christmas is going to be a challenge this year.
Well, for lots of people. For lots of people, money's going to be tight. We will get bad weather. And I just think we've got to be nicer to each other and kinder. And that's what we should look forward to, a kinder society. Because we are all in this together still.
Yeah, there's no getting away from it.
No.
And you've got a lot of families where this will be the first Christmas without loved ones as well. So I think it's going to be tough in lots of different ways. There's still lots of restrictions. There'll probably be another restrictions on movement as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depends if we get another variant or whatever before then.
Oh.
That's the problem. You can't predict how things are going to.
No.
You can say, well, there's the likelihood that obviously you get lots of people moving from now to Christmas. You've got a lot of travel.
Well, I do think that's something I am hanging on to because I've always been a big traveller. And I look forward to being able to travel abroad safely everywhere. That's what's coming. The jet set lifestyle again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to.
Yes, but for now, staycations are good.
Yeah.
Anything for you personally at all? Rather than more like general Christmas, anything personal that you guys are looking forward to?
I think just returning back to a level of work within the filming industry. Because obviously the COVID restrictions are being quite difficult on limiting on what you can and can't do. So the number of people on set and the protocols and distances and the sort of the complexity that it brings in trying to film people together. So I think hopefully once those have been relaxed, we can get back to sort of normal filming. I mean, that was, trying to do this podcast. I mean, last year we couldn't do it because we weren't allowed to be in the same room. So then we had to go to like 2 meters apart, 1 meter apart. To do that from a podcasting thing isn't so bad, but when you only have a certain amount of space limited, 6 months ago we couldn't have had the three of us together in the same location. But things are changing. So hopefully things will keep moving in a positive way, and we can then get groups of people together and have larger groups doing this kind of stuff.
And we still don't know what effect the booster jabs are going to have. Like, we can hope that they will have an effect on what we can and can't do, that they work and stop the spread as well.
And getting children as well, get vaccinated as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There was a 15-year-old. He got COVID and he passed away in the morning. His jab was due that afternoon.
That's right, yes, I remember hearing
Awful. We need to get children vaccinated. And I don't understand why we keep getting these hold-ups, and it doesn't make sense to me. But then, they are looking at the science. They know things that we don't, I hope.
Yeah, and you have to be careful with children, don't you, about growth and all sorts, I guess. That's why they're very hesitant. But it's... do the merits outweigh other things, with jabs? That all jabs have that slight thing, what are the side effects? But there's so much extensive testing done on all of the jabs now that I think I would feel safe.
Well, see, most of the jabs were modifications of what was already out there. So as I said, the reason why it came in so quickly is because they were already using a COVID-based jab. They'd already got... COVID is not new. COVID has been around in different forms, in lots of colds and viruses. This is just the next version that's come along. I think they found another 6 variants of COVID just in the bat population that could potentially cross over in the future. So this is not new. This is something that's been around for a long time. So they already had the structures. They knew the sort of the genome sequences. So they had a general idea of what it was. So it was a case of just finding out the important bits and then packaging it and putting it out. So we've had COVID vaccinations before, just under different names.
Did you have any side effects when you had your injections?
No, not that I know. Neither one is a
Neither did
Pfizer.
I had AstraZeneca.
I had AstraZeneca. My arm, I had a headache, and my arm was dead.
Oh, that's not nice. No, I had nothing.
And that was on both times, just split and pounding headache.
Oh, horrible. Horrible. A lot of people have said that. I had to check my husband's vital signs 4 times. The day after he had his both
make sure
times.
he's still alive.
He was so ill. He was in bed.
Yeah, both of my parents were very ill, but then I didn't have the same jab that they did because they gave all of us the Pfizer jab.
Yeah, they didn't want to give AstraZeneca, did they?
No.
To younger people. Well, yeah, it is AstraZeneca generally that had side effects, wasn't it?
Yeah. But after that, I've had no problems at all.
No.
It was literally sort of like 48 hours, and that was it. Fine.
And everybody expected there to be some sort of side effect, so you took it easy anyway, or had something planned, like takeaway food.
Who would you like to thank before we do sign off?
Oh, everyone listening.
Santa?
Santa. As well.
Me, myself, and I.
Thank you for everyone that's listened and taken the time to actually listen and to actually listen to more than one episode.
Definitely.
Actually being supportive, just knowing that people have been out there and they've just listened through each of the episodes or some of the episodes. That's my thanks. And thank you to my lovely co-host.
Thank you, David.
Because
Yes,
it couldn't have
thank
been
you.
such a good show without you.
We had lots of fun. Yes, definitely.
Anyone you'd like to thank, or just...
Doris as well, and yourself today.
You're very welcome. So, I think, is that it for the Fenland Chat Hour?
I think it is. This is a one-off. I don't think we're intending to do another one. Not yet. Maybe this is something to look at maybe every few months.
That's an idea.
See what kind of response we get from this one.
Yes. Check the stats.
Yeah.
David's the stats man.
Yeah.
So I guess all that is to say is thank you all for listening and for joining us on the Fenland Chat Hour for our 1 year off special.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners before we go?
Well, I hope that listeners have enjoyed listening and got something from it.
If you like it and you've enjoyed it, then give us some ratings, tell people about it. Like the channel, support, subscribe, and all those wonderful things.
So from us here in the studio, we'd like to say thank you and goodbye. How do you sign off?
Goodbye.